I'm removing the rear drive shaft here. Something to note is you need to make a mark on these drive shafts, on the drive shaft itself and on the flange, so that you can line these back up when you reinstall them, because they are balanced. And those are 15 millimeter bolts. I used an impact. You can use a wrench or a socket, either one. I used an impact to make it go a little faster. Some of them have Loctite on them though, and sometimes an impact won't take that off. The front drive shaft, I tried an impact on it and it wouldn't budge. It wouldn't budge the bolts. I had to put a wrench on it, and then I connected another wrench to that wrench to get some leverage, as I'll show you in this video, and broke them loose. And once I broke them loose a little ways, I was able to put the impact on them and take them off. Some of them I had to loosen up a lot though before the impact would do anything to them. Okay, now here's the cross member that kind of holds your transmission up, and 18 millimeter on both sides. So you'll need an 18 millimeter on one side and an 18 millimeter on the other to hold it with. And as you see here, I'm using channel locks, which are not the greatest thing. I had those laying beside me, so I grabbed them so you could see them slip right there, and I do not recommend using those at all. I recommend using either a ratchet with a socket or just a wrench. As you see me here in just a moment, I'll grab an 18 millimeter wrench, because those slipped. And when they slip like that, you'll strip, especially when you got an impact, you'll strip your nut out real quick. Really don't, I recommend not even using those at all unless that's all you have. As you can see here, I grabbed an 18 millimeter wrench. It made it much easier. But there's two of these long bolts on each side of this cross member. So there will be two on this side, and then on the other side of the vehicle, as you can see, there will be two more. And impact makes it pretty easy. Sometimes those bolts come out easy. Sometimes you got to kind of persuade them a little bit, hit them, as you see here. I hit it and knocked it in a little bit and tried to pull it out, and it still wouldn't come. So I put my impact on it and just kind of put it in reverse, and was able to get them out that way. As you see here, it kind of loosened it up. Just kind of try to pull with one hand maybe if you can while you're doing that. As you can see, I do here. My truck, most probably won't have quite as much dirt as my truck does on the bottom. That was a real pain to work with. It was falling in my eyes about the whole time. I do firewood full time in the winter, and where I go and get the wood from is some deep, muddy ruts sometimes to get in and out. So it keeps the bottom of my truck pretty dirty. I smashed my finger pretty good there trying to get that cross member off, so be careful if you're trying to beat it off with something. See how much easier it comes off when you got a wrench. Plus you don't got to worry about it stripping it. 18 millimeter on each side, as I said. The bolt head is 18 millimeters, and then the nut is 18 millimeters. I saw another video where a man was saying one side was 22 millimeters and the other side was 18, but that's not the case at all with my truck anyways. Both sides are 18 millimeter. Your shift linkage is another thing you'll need to disconnect from the transfer case. It'll be connected to your transmission, and then the other end to your transfer case, and you'll need to disconnect that. That's pretty easy to do. Just grab your pair of channel locks or pliers, and you should be able to pull each end out. There's just a little rubber grommet, and just kind of got to fight with it a little bit and get it out of that rubber grommet on one end, and then pull the other end out. It's pretty easy to get out of there, but that's another thing you will have to disconnect from your transfer case. Here's an interesting fact here that I looked on Google, just curious to see what someone would charge, you know, the average price to repair a transfer case, and I think it was around $2,600, which to me is outrageous. I've saved myself thousands of dollars doing my own mechanics, and I plan to do that the rest of my life as long as I'm able to. YouTube, I owe a whole lot to YouTube. I mean, that's what I did. I got on YouTube myself and watched videos, and some of the details on this particular job here were pretty good, and some of them weren't as well. It seems like to me they left out quite a few things that they could have added in. So I tried to show the process as well as I could here, really. As you can see here, though, let me see where I'm at. I think this is a 15 millimeter.
Oh, I broke it loose. Good.
Yeah, 15 millimeter here. So the tools you'll need an 18 millimeter, a 15, and a 14, if I'm not mistaken. That one, if I'm not mistaken, was a 15. And as you can see, I put my wrench on it and then put another wrench on there to give it some leverage. And once you break it loose, you can just use one wrench. If you've got a ratchet wrench, it'll make this job much easier. I did not have that. Or even a socket. Also, as you can see here now, there's a 15 millimeter I've got on my impact. That cross member there that I'm working on now, go ahead and take that off. That'll make it a lot easier to get that transmission mount, to get to that transmission mount, the bolts on it and the nuts. So go ahead. It has two nuts, I believe, 15 millimeter. You'll need a deep well socket to get to them. And then once you take those nuts off, as you can see on those studs right there on the transmission mount, once you take those off, you can beat that cross member off the rest of the way. And as you can see now, I can get my impact right in here to these 15 millimeters and get them out much easier. So go ahead and take that cross member off before you try to work on this transmission mount here. Transmission mount is this part you're seeing me take off now. 15 millimeter bolts. I believe all of them on this right here are 15 millimeter, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, the average cost I think was around $2,600 to do this job, and I think they were saying the parts alone were over $1,000. I bought this transfer case from a local junkyard, and I'll tell you one thing that made me think it was my transfer case. For one, I do firewood, and went to leave the other day to get a load, and when I left, I was going down the road, and my truck it was like it went in neutral all of a sudden out of nowhere, and it had been having problems up to that point. When I would put it in four-wheel drive, it would pop really loud. And so I ended up getting stuck at this church and kept messing with it and finally got it to go. The only thing it would go in was four-wheel drive low, and thank goodness I wasn't far from home. So I drove the truck home in four-wheel drive low and then did a little bit of research. I thought my transmission went out on me. And got underneath of my truck and looked, and my transfer case had a big crack in it going all the way across. I'm guessing I ran over a big round of wood where I do the firewood at. I know I did run over some, and so I'm guessing that's what cracked it. And what happened was, I'm guessing it leaked all the fluid out. Once it leaks fluid out and you drive it dry, that transfer case, it's like your engine if it has no oil in it. The gears and stuff just get real hot and end up tearing up, and so that's what happened. And even before, I wasn't positive still, when I got this transfer case that would fix it. I was hoping it wasn't the transmission and that would fix it, and sure enough it did. But if your truck is kind of popping in and out of four-wheel drive on its own, and maybe you can only put it in four-wheel drive low, and that's the only gear you can get it to drive in, I was able to go in reverse and forward in four-wheel drive low every now and then when I messed with it enough. If it's having those kind of symptoms, I'm guessing I would think that it's probably a transfer case. And check your transfer case too. It has two holes on it. You got to use an Allen wrench. Can't remember the exact size on that. You may have to look that up. It's a pretty good size, I think. But it takes an Allen key, and one of them is the drain plug, and the other one is the fill plug. And just take the top one off, which is the fill plug, and stick your pinky down in there. And if you've got fluid on your pinky, then it very well could be that it's not your transfer case. But if you're not getting any fluid at all and it's empty, it very well could be your transfer case if it's having those symptoms. And now here I am, right there's the drain plug I was just mentioning. So I'm using this Allen wrench to take it off. I believe it's a size 10. But I'm keeping that, keeping the oil from that, because that stuff's pretty expensive, I think. And I had just put that oil in it as well. When I seen it was empty, I went ahead and filled it, went and got some oil, and I bought this pump, and ended up pumping it in there. So it's not old oil. I'm going to reuse that. it's about $14 a quart if I'm not mistaken. So I didn't want to let all that go waste and have to go buy more because it can hold about 2 to 3 quarts, this truck, if I'm not mistaken. And just once you do fill it back up, fill it up until you see, fill it up with the top port, the top hole, and just fill it up until you see the oil coming out. And once it starts coming out, you'll know you're good. These here again are 15 millimeters. It looks like I'm on the front drive shaft here. That's what I'm taking off now. And now this one was much harder for me. I'd had the back drive shaft off before because I replaced the rear end in this truck, the rear axle. So, but as you see, those have Loctite on them, that blue Loctite. These front ones here were very hard to get off. There's a lot of footage I didn't include in this because I don't want this video to be so long, but this was a long job right here. It was. I mean, and part of what took so long was just getting these bolts off. Really, that was the most time-consuming part, was getting the bolts off. They were just, many of them were so tight. As you can see here, I back up a little bit. Actually, I think I just kind of pushed my truck back a little bit so that drive shaft would turn and put that bolt down on the bottom where I could get to it easier. It was up on the top, and I just could not get my second wrench on there, and I really needed to, because that was really on there. I mean, it was a lot of work to get those off. Okay, now we're moving to a 14 millimeter. This is where the transfer case bolts onto your transmission here, and I believe there's 6 of them, if I'm not mistaken, 6 bolts, or 6 nuts. I'm sorry, 16. I'm sorry, 6 14 millimeter nuts on these studs here. If I'm not mistaken, there's 1 on the side there. I think there's 2 on the bottom, 2 on the other side, so 2, 4. Actually, there may be 8 of them. There may be 8. There very well may be 8. I believe there may be 8. There's either 6 or 8 of those. But either way, they're pretty easy to get to. And if you've already got another transfer case, you can look at the studs on it and you'll know for sure. But if I'm not mistaken, there's either 6 or 8 of them. And now up top, on top of the transfer case, there's 1 electrical connector too. And you just kind of got to reach up there and feel. As you can see, I'm putting the camera up there. That's just to show you what the top looks like. And there's a nut up there as well. Very hard to get to. As I said, if you got a ratcheting wrench, it'll make that so much easier, but I did not, so it took me a long time to get these off. Some of them, once I got them started, I could actually grab them with my finger and get them off, and some of them I had to pretty much turn all the way off with a wrench until it came off. There's also a breather hose on top of there, or venting hose, I guess you could call it. If I'm not mistaken, that's what it is. A little rubber hose, and it'll have a metal clamp holding on there. Just grab you a pair of pliers and squeeze that clamp together. It has little tabs on it. Squeeze those tabs together to where you expand the clamp, and then just pull it up off of that little metal tab there, and go ahead and pull the hose off of there. That's the only 2 things you need to remove. There's a vent hose, and then there's an electrical connector. And as far as the electrical connector goes, I just there's a little tab on it. I pulled the tab up away from the connector itself, and then just pulled up, and I had to fight with it a little bit. It wasn't very easy to get off there. I kind of shook it back and forth. It was like there was a vacuum effect holding it down. It has little rubber tabs on it that go down in there into the connector, so it's kind of hard to get off. As you can see here, I'm getting the transfer case off itself, and it is pretty heavy. I mean, so I've seen some people use a jack. I just kind of pulled it out there and then let it fall. And that took a little persuasion too. Once you get everything disconnected, the front and rear drive shaft, the vent hose on top, the electrical connector on top, and then you disconnect it from the transmission, it's ready to come out of there. You're going to have to shake a little bit back and forth. I kind of had to shake it and then pull it towards myself, pull it away from the transmission pretty hard. Let's see how many studs there is there. I didn't count that. You can pause the video there and count those studs, and that'll tell you how many of those nuts you're going to have to take off though. But in here, it probably would have been much easier to use a jack. I even had one sitting there, but I tried to just get it up in there without one, and I was able to do that. Kind of put it on my legs and pushed it up. I heard some guys say these probably weighed around 90 pounds. I don't think they're that heavy. I'm guessing around 70 pounds or something. Still pretty heavy, but I don't think it's quite 90. Could be wrong. Anyways, once you get it up in there, I ended up putting a jack under it at this point to help me. So I mean, it probably would be smarter just to have you a jack with maybe a little piece of wood on top, a little 2x4 or something, or maybe a 2x6, something wider, and go ahead and jack it up there. It might be easier. It probably would be easier. But anyways, I was able to get it up there, and I just put a jack to help support it as I tried to line those studs up to the holes in the transmission here. And it did take a little bit of work too. I mean, everything about this job was far more time consuming than I thought it would be. This is the first transfer case job I've ever done, and sure enough, though, it fixed my problem. When I got in the truck and started it up, I was so happy to see that it fixed my problem. The only thing I don't show in this process, I noticed, was I don't show me putting the transmission mount back on, which if you need to see that, just go and watch me take it off and just kind of do that step in reverse. But you're going to want to do that before you even put the cross member back in. Go ahead and put the transmission mount on. If I'm not mistaken, that's the way you should do it. I actually, the way I did it was I put my cross member in, but then I didn't have enough room in between the cross member and the transmission to get the transmission mount in there. So what I did was just put my jack underneath the transmission and put a little piece of 4x4 block on it, and then raised it up high enough to where I could get in there. And once I did that, I was able to put that transmission mount in there. And there's two pieces to that, two little metal pieces, two parts to the mount. I mean, you'll see them when you take them off, and as you can see me, I took them off. And there's only one way that those holes can line up as well, so just kind of mess with it until you see that you've got those holes lined up. Now here I am putting, I believe this is the front drive shaft back in. Yeah, it is, front drive shaft. The fluid that it takes is just labeled transfer case fluid, and it comes in a bottle that looks just like an oil bottle. You can get it at your local auto parts store, and I just bought some, I think it was synthetic Valvoline transfer case fluid, and that's what I used in mine. But I would recommend buying 3 quarts. I used 2, and I think maybe a little over 2, maybe like 2.5, 2.25 of the next bottle. But check your fluid, as I said, fill it up until it's coming out, and once you get all this stuff back together, get your transmission mount and everything on. Once you get all this stuff back together, you should be good to go. I hope this fixes your problem. It did fix mine. I was worried my transmission went out on me, but as I said, if you're having the symptoms that I mentioned at all, and your transfer case is empty of fluid, that's probably your problem. Thanks for watching, and God bless.